I kept the name of a Canada Customs Border Security officer written in tiny letters on the corner of my kitchen dry erase board for 5 years. I wanted to remember exactly how I felt at the moment everything changed. The officer had called to tell me he had my 18-year-old son detained at the Canada-US border. My brilliant, kind, moral, and ethical son who no one could ever have imagined being in any sort of trouble. It felt like the earth had just disintegrated under my feet. My son had recently finished his first year of an intense university science undergrad program. He had a full-time summer job, his own car, and a really sweet romantic partner. In the weeks leading up to that day, my son had been researching a prominent US banking family in his spare time. Pursuing intellectual interests with great intensity wasn't unusual for my son. But his focus on this particular family started keeping him up late, very late. Coupled with his long days at work, he was barely getting any sleep. He'd speak at length and with great fervor about the activities of this banking family. He was certain they had control over the US economy. He spoke as though he had uncovered a bombshell. Everything about it seemed urgent and important. It smacked of conspiracy. I struggled to see why I should care. Earlier, on the day I heard from the customs officer, I got a worried phone call from my other son indicating he'd spotted his brother driving around our neighborhood. He said his brother seemed lost, even though he was only a few doors away from our house. When I arrived at the customs office to retrieve him, my son said he was just trying to find out whether the banking family members were good people or bad people. He didn't seem aware that he was about to miss the beginning of his partner's birthday bash. It was a big event that they'd been planning for weeks. I felt like I was in one of those dreams where everything looks normal, but suddenly something so random pops up, you feel cold. You try to scramble away from it, but you can't move. Here was my son, an extremely rational person who the rest of us had so often turned to when we needed a mediator, with a look in his eye that I'd never seen before. It was a look of mistrust, of me. He was speaking to me slowly and guardedly. I later learned that's called thought blocking. My son stayed in hospital for the next couple of weeks. He seemed so different from the person he was before psychosis arrived. He had a couple of outbursts and had to be subdued. He thought one of the other patients was God. I just couldn't believe this was happening. I was scared, I was tired, and I was very angry when I found out my son had been smoking copious amounts of weed despite all my warnings. I can't stress enough how critical the people in the region's early psychosis intervention program were in getting my son and my whole family back on track. They were everything about our collective recovery. My son has been stable and out of hospital for the past 3 years. He's back in school at a modified pace, and he's making plans for the future.